Okay. So what has just happened is I think I've made all of the things that I need to copy this gradient set. Now I am going to make a new gradient set. Gradient set. Gradient set. And in new gradient editor I will say project gradient set. What did I say you could do with a gradient set? Copy to something really clever like that. Huh. A gradient set, not a corner set. Got too much stupid things, and my mouse wheel will kill me. Copy to G set and update edit panel. Then in update edit panel I continue. Now that G set is a copy of something, the first thing I do is say if G set, because, well, I could just say if not G set to return, because, well, why not? It's safer to do it that way. Right, now, what exactly is going to happen to my G set? I can get rid of this. I did save that page. That's a great favourite of mine, that one. I suppose. I wonder if I should zoom out a bit or what. Don't know. Anyway. This is for the edit panel. This defines all the contents of the edit panel. What it's going to get is a G set, and the G set is a linked list of gradients, and what the gradients are a linked list of colours. Is the G set a linked list? It is. The G set's a linked list of gradients. I need to set up a system of columns and rows appropriate for this G set, and it could have, if it exists, it should, because when I don't just instantiate a G set but create one, it will have two values, a beginning and end, so you can query it. No, a gradient, you can query it. And so when I create the initial G set, it has a single gradient in it. There are aspects of the G set I haven't yet coded, really. I mean, it has to be able to return a gradient based on a point in time, so to speak. Anyway, the main thing I want to think about just now is how many gradients are in this G set, because the number of columns I want is, I think, gradient number times 2 plus 1. So if there are, and the same, all the gradients in a gradient set will have the same number of colors. The same number of color entries. For the time being, it is a bit of a sort of limitation, and it's a thing which is going to be I think largely controlled through the GUI. We'll see. I might end up adding, in fact I definitely, okay, we'll see how that goes. But also the number of rows is equal to the gradient, an individual gradient number of colors times 2 plus 1. And it's times 2 plus 1 because let's say we've got a G set with 3 gradients and each gradient has 3 colors. 3 times 2 plus 1 is 7 and 3 times 2 plus 1 is 7. How do I divide into 7? I say I need 3 on one side, 3 on the other and 1 in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. God. 3 on one side, 3 on one side and 1 in the middle. Because I need a color button there, beautiful, color button there, and a color button there. I need a color button there, color button there, a color button there, and one there, one there, and one there. I need, in this setup, I need add, minus, add, minus, add, minus, add, add, minus, add, minus, add, minus, add. To remove an individual gradient, to remove an individual row of gradient entries, to add a gradient, or to add a row of gradient entries. Now, there's some questions about where, like, because I could put methods into my gradient set class, which allowed you to insert gradients automatically that would generate a set of colors for the new gradient that was based on the gradient's neighbors in the set. And when I'm using the GUI, or when I'm using the GUI, that's what I want. When I create a new gradient, I kind of want it to take on appropriate colors automatically, so that it doesn't just immediately set the whole thing crazy. Whether I do that, I think I do that in the gradient editor. I guess. Well, no, I won't. I'll make a method that automatically will add a gradient to a set, and will add a row to a gradient set. And I might just do that now because that would be nice. I could do this bit first. One of the questions about this bit is, I can just take the width of the face of the gradient or the color zone and divide it by, I can say, gradient color zone width divided by the number of gradients times 2 plus 1, and have even spacing for these buttons and for these guys. And initially that's what I'm going to do. It's the easiest sum to do. Yeah. It's the easiest sum to do. So I'm thinking about my gradient set class now and thinking about all the things I should add to it. Right, the color zone width divided by the number of... Okay, let's have a C. This is a little bit like the new of the gradient editor, where I want to think up some things. So a local, I'll call it a column width, is equal to color zone face width, and oh no, I'll just I will make that. I'll make it color. I'll say color zone width equals that, because I don't know how often I'm gonna color zone height float equals color zone face height, and column width equals color zone width divided by. Okay, another little thing I'll do is num gradients unsigned int equals g set gradients count. Now maybe I should change the order here, because again here I should probably say if numg equals 0, return. If for some reason there is a gradient set but it's got no gradients, forget it. No more buttons for you. CZW. Okay, so now I've said I do have a gradient, and there are gradients in it. So the column width is equal to that divided by the float of number of gradients times, now all of this can just go in brackets, times 2. I suppose I could do the number of gradients times 2 plus 1. I could put the float outside everything, couldn't I? Is that a sensible thing to do? Yeah, I want to get a float at the end. What? Don't. Okay, thank you. Right, so, and I may as well also just have row width float equals, one moment. Okay, well, this should be row height. And what is it equal to is the color zone height divided by the float of, okay, and this is another thing, which is local, and I'm going to call this G high for gradient height equals, hang on a sec, actually goes after here, equals G set gradients first node value count. No, it'll give me the gradient colors count, because the gradient has a list of colors. G set gradients first node value colors count. Nice. But that's how high this gradient set is. Yeah, gradient height times 2 plus 1. So now I also want to say if the gradient height equals 0, then forget it. Somehow this is a gradient set which has a gradient in it. And also I'm just checking the height of the first set of colors, the first gradient. because it's assumed that all the gradients are the same height. In fact, if you try to add a gradient, if I put in an option that is adding a pre-existing gradient, then it will be rejected if it's the wrong height, or a new gradient of the correct height will be created with as much as will go in or something. I don't know. I could create a new gradient that stretched the given gradient across the correct number of colours. That might be a good plan. Now, so I have num_g and g high, which is kind of annoying couple of things, but maybe I'll just maybe I'm overdoing this, but I'll just spell it all out. I'll say calls, num calls num. I'll just say calls uint equals. This is actually num_g times 2, and rows uint equals g high times 2. No, this is 2 plus 1. I do want, this is a total number of rows divided by the float of the calls, and this is divided by the float of the rows. Okay. So I probably don't need to figure that out separately. So I want to use this information to create a series of color buttons. And the color buttons are an array of linked lists. If I look them up here, colors, list, color button, array of. So here's how I do that. I said scratching my eye and distracting myself with chatter. I say color, what did I call it again? Colors equals new, no, hang on a sec. New list color button of size number of gradients. Is that right? For local I unsigned int equals 0 until the gradient height colors I equals new list color button. I've done this the wrong way round. It's this should be until num_g, sorry, and then for local current color g color equals each in, okay, right, this is where I have to do some traversing of a linked list, right, because the color set is a list. No, I don't have to really, I just have to increase an integer. That's what I have to do. Local current gradient G set gradients. Colors I equals, okay, current color equals each in current gradient. Next. What's the problem? What's the problem? Needs an equals. So the current color is each in equals each in current gradient colors. What's the problem here? At the moment I say I equals 0. No, I don't. I increase I down here. Excuse me for dunting the mic there. Have I already declared I? I have. Okay, so I don't need to redeclare I just need to remember. And here, sget. G set. Yes, get. Now, current color equals each in current gradient colors. Now I want to add a button for each color. And these colors will read from the bottom to the top. I must remember that little detail, or they read from the top to the bottom if I say each in backwards or something. I forget how to do that. Backwards. It's probably this which is different. It's like equals reverse. I'll look it up if I find myself determined to do it. I don't really need to do it that way. Again, all I need to do, like so often, is I come here and I say local cursor x float equals 0. Well, I'll figure out what cursor x equals, and cursor y float equals 0, 0. What does cursor x equals? So I'm going through the gradients left to right, that's the order of time, and I'm going through the colours in each gradient bottom to top, and the layout is this. So the first button, the cursor starts there, and the button width is the column width, and the button height is the row height, and the first position is column width, and first x position is column width, and the first y position is row height times 2. No, it's the face of the color zone minus the row height times 2. So Cx equals column width, and Cy equals color zone height minus, doesn't equal this bit, minus row height times 2. I'm going to try and discipline myself and not use idiotic brackets. Types must be numeric. Thanks. Okay. So now I say colors I add last new my button, no, new color button, parent gadget is the color zone, it has no words written in it, x is cx, y is cy, this is column width, height is row height, and the color is current color. Now, yeah, hang on a second while I think about that. because I'm trying to remember, because I realise what this receives is an actual colour. It doesn't do anything, it just uses that to set its own colour. That's my memory of it. This is a problem, I realise, and it's why structs would be a useful thing for me to get into using. The problem of passing references. I love it, I do it all the time. It's a great place for the undisciplined, I find. Okay, so this create, and then the next thing that happens after that is I say cy minus equals row height times 2. And that is it. Then once I've drawn all those colours, I say cx plus equals row width times 2. And that shuttles the cursor along, but I also say cy equals color zone height minus row height times 2, and this is not, that's column width. And there I say I plus equals 1. Yeah, that will catch up. C color zone height. Okay. So, it creates a new set of buttons based on the contents of gset. Now, the next thing I have to do is create a row of buttons along the top and a column of buttons along the side with plus and minuses in them, and I have to activate or deactivate the based on what? Based on the size of the gset, based on its width and height. So I need to figure out the number of these things. I need to figure out the number of add buttons, the number of remove buttons. So the number of remove buttons will be equal to the number of gradients, the number of remove gradient buttons will be equal to the number of gradients. Similarly with the number of remove row buttons will be equal to the number of colours in the set, in the gradients in this set. So I suppose I just better do that, and the first thing I guess I'll do is I'll just say horizontal add equals new my button gradient, what did I call it? That's so stupid. Number of gradients plus 1. Horizontal remove equals new my button number of gradients. Vertical add equals new my button gradient height plus 1. Vertical remove equals new my button gradient height. Now, here is where I save, and I have to call it a day for just now because this video is going to be longer than I intended. Next time I'm just going to carry on creating these buttons based on the content of the gradient set, and hopefully we'll be able to actually see it soon. Bye.